So look at this. I got hair, and this has been the most hair I've had in ever. And I was going to keep this hair, but then I realized, there we go. Look at that. Look at that huge, huge top of the head, back of the head, bald spot going on there. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going back to, yeah, that's better. Yeah, we can work with that. Hi, I'm Jesse Brooks, also known as the 5-String Fairy. I make music. Last week I posted some pretty raw, emotional footage from the riots that happened last week in response to, we'll say, George Floyd, but really we know it's deeper than that. There was peaceful protest. People came out, they expressed how they felt, and then others decided to take the opportunity to riot and loot and cause a good deal of destruction. It wasn't just Grand Rapids. There was a lot of rioting that happened all over the country. Grand Rapids just happens to be where I live. After that, there was a curfew that was put in place for 48 hours, and it was enforced by the National Guard. People did go downtown and volunteer and actually clean up. In the midst of the pandemic, they started asking people not to go down and help, but people still did it. So there was some positivity that came out of that. But for the most part, for me and my family, it was just life. I got up every day after that and went to work remotely, just like I had been doing since this pandemic hit. My boys had their last week of distance learning, just like they had been doing since the pandemic started. My wife gardened. She got some new plants for the backyard. We kind of laid low and continued to live. There were still discussions going on, and that seems to part. There were still a lot of conversations. A lot of conversations happening. A lot of news still happening, and I'm not a news channel. I tend to just make music and usually chill music to kind of go with my day job of software development. But yeah, so that happened. There was a lot of conversation. A couple of the conversations I had were on Facebook, and Facebook is one of those places I really have started to avoid. It feels like an echo chamber. If you slightly lean one way or the other, there are plenty of people who will reinforce your idea, which could be a good thing, but in a lot of cases it could be a bad thing. I tend to have a wide variety of people that I'm friends with on Facebook, so I get all sides of every issue you could possibly imagine. And to be honest, y'all, really, all I'm really looking for Facebook is to basically promote my music and my videos on occasion and see pictures of your kid. That's it. That's why I'm on Facebook, is to actually look at pictures of people and their kids doing stuff. That's it. And maybe a good steak. Yeah, good steak. Oh, definitely if you got some good music too. I love to hear music and see that. But yeah, so maybe those three things. That's why I'm on Facebook. That we'll leave it at that. I'm on Facebook for pretty basic reasons. Anyway. What's been happening lately is people have been posting lots and lots of things around the issues of race, racism, politics, pandemics. Should you wear a mask? Should you not wear a mask? Should you believe the governor? Should you not believe the governor? Is the government out to get us? Is the government out to save us? All of that. Usually I'm pretty good about just filtering it out and skipping past that or scrolling past that to see pictures of you and your children doing fun things. But there were a couple times where I basically needed to remove people from my list because it was too tiring. There was a couple instances where I had a friend post a picture. Effectively, it came down to the idea that racism as it exists today, or what we're calling racism, isn't actually racism. Racism happened in the 60s. What we have today is just people with hurt feelings. That just didn't sit well with me. And I wasn't sure that's what the picture was saying. So I asked him what he meant by posting that picture. So we had a discussion about it, and I think my take or my outcome from that conversation was, just because someone's not burning a cross on my front lawn doesn't mean that they aren't having racist intentions towards me. And I kind of highlighted that, at this point, people are calling the police on black people for being black in public. That is definitely a symptom of systematic racism. The fact that you can just call the police on someone and say the correct catchphrases and the police will show up, potentially kill you for being black. We'll come back to that one. Another conversation I had was actually kind of surprising. It was a friend. He reached out and asked if they had ever treated me in an unbecoming way, if they'd ever mistreated me or inadvertently hurt me in their thinking or the way they acted. It kind of caught me by surprise completely, took me aback, because when I think of racism and racist people, they're nowhere near that list. And when we started talking about it and going back and forth, and really it comes down to, they treated me like a regular person. They didn't treat me like a black person. They just treated me like a person. And ultimately, I think when you take all of the things into consideration, that's really what we're talking about. Treating people like people. I mean, every instance of calling the police on black people for waiting for a friend in a coffee shop because they're less than people, they don't get to do that. So we're going to call the police. Or if a person comes up to you and highlights, hey, there's a sign over there that says you need to keep your dog on a leash. Well, I'm going to call the police on you because you're less than a person. Therefore, I should call the police. Just really subtle ways that people aren't even realizing. You're treating me, you're dehumanizing me. You're treating me like less than a person, and therefore you feel like you should call the police. When the police show up and instantly see not a person, but the perpetrator, and then they react accordingly, we get things like George Floyd. And we've seen that over and over again. I watched a video this week on YouTube with Keegan-Michael Key, and he talked about how when he was pulled over before he was famous versus when he's pulled over after he's famous, he kind of made the comment that it seemed like the police, because they're familiar with his work, familiar with his comedy, maybe seen him in a couple movies, they recognize him and they see him as more of a person than before they knew anything about him. And so then when that even strips away the whole race aspect of it, it's just, do you see me as a person? There are lots more conversations to be had about this. Lots of things to be worried about at this point. Hopefully we're just safe, and hopefully there is progress to deal with the actual COVID that's still out there. I'll get back to making music, because I think that's my happy place, is when I'm actually making music, doing things like this. This is a creative outlet for me. It's different than my day job, and so I have to keep doing this. Got to keep making music, and maybe I'll get out for a bike ride or two. Anyway, I think I've rambled on long enough for this week. Catch you in the next one.